Madam Speaker. And now, please welcome Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi. It is my honor to bring you the greetings of House Democrats, the most diverse majority in history, more than 60% women, people of color, and LGBTQ. Our diversity is our strength. Our unity is our power. This month, as America marks the centennial of women finally winning the right to vote, we do so with 105 women in the House. Proudly, 90 are Democrats. To win the vote, women marched and fought and never gave in. We stand on their shoulders, charged with carrying forward the unfinished work of our nation advanced by heroes, from Seneca Falls to Selma to Stonewall. 4 years ago, when President Obama and Vice President Biden were in the White House, they made us proud, and their leadership made our country great. In that spirit, we come together now, not to decry the darkness, but to light a way forward for our country. That is the guiding purpose of House Democrats, fighting for the people. We have sent the Senate bills for lower healthcare costs, for bigger paychecks, for cleaner government, protecting John Lewis's voting rights, and enacting George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We've sent the Senate bills to protect our dreamers, LGBTQ equality, to prevent gun violence, and to preserve our planet for future generations, and even more. All of this is possible for America. Who was standing in the way? Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. Our nation faces the worst health and economic catastrophe in our history. More than 5 million Americans are infected by the coronavirus. Over 170,000 have died. The science-based action, the HEROES Act we enacted 3 months ago, is essential to safeguard lives, livelihood, and the life of our democracy. And who is standing in the way? Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. Instead of crushing the virus, they're trying to crush the Affordable Care Act and its pre-existing conditions benefit. As Speaker of the House, I've seen firsthand Donald Trump's disrespect for facts, for working families, and for women in particular. Disrespect written into his policies toward our health and our rights, not just his conduct. But we know what he doesn't, that when women succeed, America succeeds. And so we are unleashing the power of women to take our rightful place in our national life by championing a woman's right to choose and defending Roe v. Wade, securing safe and affordable child care, preserving Social Security, and passing equal pay for equal work. Who's standing in the way? Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. So here is our answer. We will remember in November when we will elect Joe Biden president, whose heart is full of love for America, and rid the country of Trump's heartless disregard for America's goodness. Joe Biden's faith in God gives him the courage to lead. Joe Biden's love gives him the strength to persevere. Joe Biden is the president we need right now, battle-tested, forward-looking, honest, and authentic. He has never forgotten who he is fighting for. And Kamala Harris is the vice president we need right now, committed to our Constitution, brilliant in defending it, and a witness to the women of this nation that our voices will be heard. Our mission is to fight for a future equal to the ideals of our founders, our hopes for our children, and the sacrifices of our veterans, our brave men and women in uniform, and their families. We will increase our majority in the House. We will win a Democratic majority in the Senate. We will elect Kamala Harris vice president, and we will elect Joe Biden president of the United States of America. God bless you, and God bless America.
She was focused. Nancy Pelosi never blinks. That's how focused she is. I counted 2 blinks for that whole speech. She meant that. She's like, listen here, y'all. With that little Italian finger. She meant business. I have Italian mother. They don't play around. They'll give you a little nice smile before they read the hell out of you and check the shit out of you. So I'm team Nancy Pelosi.
She didn't freestyle that one. She pre-wrote them bars. I thought she was gonna come off the dome with some scathing diss, but when she said, "Hey, we not here to talk about the darkness. We here to look forward towards the light," I said, "Okay, that's player. I gotta hold it down." That was smooth. She said, "I ain't trying to hurt the party. I'm trying to help the party." I ain't mad at her.
By the way, everyone, Dr. Sean did have to go, but he'll be back with us tomorrow. So I look forward to that. And we do have a tweet about Nancy Pelosi, basically agreeing with you, Claudia and Leon. Nancy Pelosi is one bad mother. Shut your mouth. She is nothing less than amazing.
And if y'all remember a few, like about 6-7 months, in the past year or two, she was struggling and they were talking about like she was about to be replaced, right? There was a time where we talked about replacing her. And so she would no longer be speaker. And she gathered back, like she clawed her way back and has a renewed strength and energy behind her. I don't know what the hell she did, but she did that. So yeah, y'all remember that?
Yeah. There was the progressive wing of the party was talking about a lot of whispers about they wanted Barbara Lee to be Speaker of the House.
She came back from the dead.
Everyone ended up, voting.
And I love how much she gets under Donald Trump's skin, and she does it with a smile. Like she's so good at that. Like I love it. I'm here for the petty though. I'm a little petty. I like it.
But you know what? And watching this, I'm starting to open my eyes now by watching this DNC. It's a lot of gangster females on the team. Like Nancy a gangster. Kamala looks like she gonna turn up a little bit. And damn sure homie that's coming up next is a goon. Ask Bloomberg. He called all them hands. He called all them hands and them debates. I was like, oh my God, like she is this old lady is giving him work. So I think it's a strong woman component to the Democratic drive, and I don't think they use that enough. Hopefully they'll capitalize on now. They'll see after this. I mean, from Michelle with her speech, like I'm just sitting up here like, wow, these sisters is coming a little bit harder than the brothers.
If you've never seen Kamala Harris in those Senate hearings, that's when I became a super fan. Like she talking about gangsters, she don't let nothing slide. She's so sharp. We have a comment, I'm sorry. R. Hill says, Hillary lost due to white women not voting. They keep blaming Black people, a large number of white women voting like their white husbands against Clinton. Don't let them say it's our fault. Black women, we're like 98%, 96%. We solid. Yeah. 53% of those white women did vote for Donald Trump. So I don't know.
Low last time though. The voter apathy was pretty high. I mean, we didn't turn out in the same record numbers that we turned out in 2008 and definitely not in 2012. So I think people got a little comfortable, a little apathetic with the process. And so we need to always be encouraging people to pay attention to every election. And so that means we need to be talking to our communities more and having people speak out on these issues, because if we don't keep the spotlight on them, then what happens in 2016 ends up happening again. I think that's why it was important for us to hear from Hillary Clinton tonight, because she, in a way, was a sacrificial lamb of sorts. She won the popular vote, but lost the election because of the Electoral College. And if we are not careful, if we are apathetic this time around, and this time we've got more variables, we've got COVID happening. I mean, getting to the polls is not going to be the easy feat that it typically is. We got states not wanting to send mail-in ballots to every registered voter. You would think those are things that are just normal, that should already be what happens. But voter infringement is rampant and it is happening. So we've got to be even more diligent this time around.
You forgot Kanye, sir. You forgot Kanye. We got him too as a distraction.
Lord.
Absolutely. And the people helping Kanye are people who have helped the Trump campaign. A lot of attorneys who have worked on the campaign are the ones submitting him to be put on the ballot in certain states. It's a concerted effort, and there's no hiding that or masking it.
I saw.
Is that all they have? Because speaking to some of the diversity that you were talking about, Leon, if Black women are on full display, women in general on display, they're really the voice of the party, the voice of this convention. Next week, the Republicans are going to have to try to compete with this, not only the production value, but also Trump's going to have to speak it without a live audience. And then how do they even possibly compete with the diversity on display this week?
This is where the clown show of Donald Trump comes in. I guarantee you he's going to have the two chicks that make the Donald Trump songs singing, doing something crazy. I guarantee you he's going to have
Diamond Silk.
Miss Thornton that just got into it with D.L. Hughley in the airport. The Republican chick. He's gonna have. It's gonna be a clown show. It's going to be a clown show. I'm gonna watch it just for the laughs, for the shits and giggles. I'm telling you, it's going to be a clown.
In St. Louis that were waving guns at protesters, speaking next week well at the convention. So the diversity, it's as if they don't even try to show any diversity. When you look at the convention, when it's attended in person, especially, the color difference is unquestionable. There is a rainbow of colors generally at the Democratic convention, while at the Republican convention, it is mostly white. Even in the pictures that we see them posting, there is not a lot of ethnic diversity or diversity of thought.
So you know what? We're giving them too much credit here, guys. I mean, they don't care about production value. They don't care about being able to spell, forming complete sentences. Have you seen a Republican national convention, or any of their conventions or any of their rallies? It's low class trailer. Sorry, that's the majority of it. America. It's those people in hold my beers, loose fitting tank tops, people who couldn't get into NASCAR. That's the majority, not all, but that's their core. They're not looking at production value. They don't even know what that means, half of them. And yeah, I said it.
Hey, I got a question. Do you think?
Go for it.
I think the women have to carry this for Biden, because I personally believe Biden has said some things where he stuck his foot in his mouth concerning Black people. Seth, I might want to ask you, Claudia, you guys chime in on it. How does he recover from that? Because, some of that stuff he said, like, y'all was like, yo, you tripping, bro. You know
I'm not gonna lie. Every time he goes to speak, I get nervous but this isn't something new. This isn't, Joe's losing it this year. Joe has always been known. He's the gaffe master. He's performed so many gaffes from way before, when he was at the peak of his mental to now. So I just feel like he can't freestyle. I think and I don't know if it comes from his stuttering problem. He gets nervous, but he starts going left and saying all kind of weird stuff. And I'm like, bless his heart. But I've done that too. I've had a few concussions in my life, so I get it. But yeah, he has said a lot of stuff. And I'd be like, yo, can we just let Kamala talk right now? Kamala.
I know Joe Biden has been given kind of like a long leash from Democrats for about 50 years now. I think it may be, you could say unfortunate, but people expect, like Claudia was just saying, when he speaks, that you may not love everything he says. He's had to walk a lot of things back, and a lot of things he's walked back in ways that weren't as strong. But I think people are focused right now. And say what you want about him. He won. There was a primary with a bunch of different people, different looking people with different policies, people who don't make the type of verbal mistakes that he makes, people who don't focus on reaching across the aisle in the way that he does. And he won. And he won because of people who look like us in the South.
The stakes were different this time around, for sure. But I think that he does have a problem with putting his foot in his mouth. He often seems to get a little too comfortable in certain environments. That Breakfast Club interview, I don't know if it's because he's been so beloved by the Black community and so well received that he feels a little too at home in certain environments. But he definitely has said things. I mean, one thing that Republicans have seized that he said recently is the comment about, unlike the Black community, the Latino community is diverse, or implied that there is more diversity of thought. The Black community is not monolithic. And he seems to almost subconsciously take that for granted at times. He's said things before that implied that he felt he already had the Black vote in the bag. And I think that's harmful. I think he needs to be more careful in those environments, since it's been a repeated problem. It wasn't just one or two gaffes. It's something that
it was like it had been a week. People weren't over what he said to Charlemagne. And then all of a sudden there was this, and it didn't even make any sense, because of course the Black community is diverse. The Latino community is also diverse, in part because a lot of Latinos are Black.
But you know what, guys, I went back and I watched the whole thing, and it was definitely clipped to make it look worse than it was. What he was saying was diversity, as far as the majority of Black Americans are Democrats. That is a fact. That is a fact. And he was saying the Latino community, there's what is it, 60-30 as far as like Democrat, Republican. He was talking about party from what I saw. So when I saw that part, I was like, oh, that wasn't as bad as it saying like diverse period. You know what I mean? And listen, being on reality TV, I done said something and I know, damn it, they're gonna end the clip right there. I'm gonna look like a total asshole.
Claudia, don't you think that
it's valid, but it's how you say it.
Right. I'm saying if he said it like how you just said it right there, put it in the context, said, listen, more blacks are Democrats than they are Republicans. And the Hispanic and Latino community, we have a more Republican represented by them. Okay, I get it. But when you holler diversity, the way people listen, I mean, and I learned that on the radio. One thing you say, you know how you're saying it, and we all know is it, but those listeners, they like, nope, you just called us the N-word.
Yep.
And now you got 1,000 phone calls coming in. But I think Joe, I mean, I like Joe. And back, Brooke, to what you were saying when you said he won, was that more of a familiar thing with us people that we know who Joe Biden is for the average voter? Or were they really locked in tune what Joe Biden was saying? Because, you know, Bernie was cool. You know, I thought Miss Warren was cool, but were we just more familiar with Joe Biden because he ran with Barack, and we like, oh, if he ran with Barack, that's the homie. You know, are some people looking at it that way? Because I know we say he won, but
and the last
time I don't know. I think that as much as we complain about the party as a whole, right, taking Black voters for granted, I think that within Black voters, a lot of people were taking really what becomes and what has been over the years the strongest kind of sector, the most loyal bloc, and that's what those people, they wanted Joe Biden, and he swept South Carolina, and they were being ignored essentially before that. I don't know. And I'm also curious, like we were talking about, he makes these mistakes, right? And things can get twisted, but with the stakes as high as they are, does he have a responsibility to clean it up a little bit?
Hell yeah. Like, I know this, like, I might talk crazy. I might say a lot of crazy stuff around my friends and stuff. But I know when I'm getting in front of somebody, asking them for a comedy show, or asking them, or getting in front of people at Fox Soul, and I want to ask them to do something, man, I sit down with the wife and make sure I go over what I'm going to say so I don't say nothing crazy and blow a bag. And that's what I feel like he was trying to do then. Like, you're trying to blow the bag, homie. Like, you're talking crazy.
That's part of it. Being tactful and knowing how to speak to certain audiences without offending them is important. I mean, we've got a president now who's got Twitter fingers, a little diarrhea of the mouth. And so it's hard to argue yourself as being different from that, what we see currently, when you make similar mistakes and make them again and again. I think I want to ask you guys how you feel about Kamala Harris, because she's coming up tonight. And is she what Biden needs to clean up his act and appeal more so to Black voters, to a larger swath of voters?
I want to say real quick, I think with Biden, it's a mistake. And I think with Trump, it's a deliberate insult to people. And I think that's what the difference is. I think with Biden, he's an old man. He'll be the oldest elected president ever if he wins, when he wins. And I think with him, I think his heart's in the right place, but he says goofy shit. That's what I think about Biden. We have a comment that says, the remixer says, I'll take an honest, gaffe-prone guy over a petty, cowardly, lying, racist, criminal, traitorous buffoon any day of the week and twice on Sunday. And XOXO Bob says Trump is not an option in November. And yes, I think Kamala Harris, she's sharp, precise, and as a prosecutor, she can never afford to be off. So I think she's gonna make up all those shortcomings and you know, as VP. I think she's really gonna be she's
weighs it out. Levels it out.
The way Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, the way they handled those confirmation hearings at the beginning of Trump's tenure, his term as president, his first term, people, that's what they were looking forward to hearing speak. People were watching C-SPAN. People who have never watched stuff like that before, following along with those hearings on Twitter because of her voice. She is one of the strongest speakers in the Democratic Party next to, you know, President Obama. We have them both tonight, I think. You know, that's what people have been looking forward to about her. There's been jokes about what the VP debate is going to look like, what tonight is going to look like when she speaks. I think that is absolutely one of where she's solid.
I think
Elizabeth Warren is coming up, so we're going to toss it back to the DNC.
Tonight, we've heard from the people who make America work. People who put their lives on the line to keep our country going. And since COVID-19 hit, they've taken one gut punch after another. And what has the COVID fallout done to our babies? Well, I'm here at the Early Childhood Education Center in Springfield, Massachusetts, which has been closed for months. Childcare was already hard to find before the pandemic, and now parents are stuck. No idea when schools can safely reopen, and even fewer childcare options. The devastation is enormous. And the way I see it, big problems demand big solutions. Now, I love a good plan, and Joe Biden has some really good plans. Plans to bring back union jobs in manufacturing and create new union jobs in clean energy. Plans to increase Social Security benefits, cancel billions in student loan debt, and make our bankruptcy laws work for families instead of the creditors who cheat them. These plans reflect a central truth. Our economic system has been rigged to give bailouts to billionaires and kick dirt in the face of everyone else. But we can build a thriving economy by investing in families and fixing what's broken. Joe's plan to build back better includes making the wealthy pay their fair share, holding corporations accountable, repairing racial inequities, and fighting corruption in Washington. Let me tell you about one of Joe's plans that's especially close to my heart: childcare. As a little girl growing up in Oklahoma, what I wanted most in the world was to be a teacher. I loved teaching. And when I had babies and was juggling my first big teaching job down in Texas, it was hard, but I could do hard. The thing that almost sank me: childcare. One night, my Aunt Bee called just to check in. And I thought I was fine, but then I just broke down and started to cry. I had tried holding it all together, but without reliable childcare, working was nearly impossible. And when I told Aunt Bee I was going to quit my job, I thought my heart would break. And then she said the words that changed my life: "I can't get there tomorrow, but I'll come on Thursday." And she arrived with 7 suitcases and a Pekingese named Buddy and stayed for 16 years. I get to be here tonight because of my Aunt Bee. I learned a fundamental truth: nobody makes it on their own. And yet, here we are, 2 generations of working parents later. And if you have a baby and don't have an Aunt Bee, you're on your own. And here's why that is wrong. We build infrastructure like roads and bridges and communication systems so that people can work. That infrastructure helps us all because it keeps our economy going. It's time to recognize that childcare is part of the basic infrastructure of this nation. It's infrastructure for families. Joe and Kamala will make high-quality childcare affordable for every family, make preschool universal, and raise the wages of every childcare worker. Now, that's just one plan, but it gives you an idea of how we get this country working for everyone. Donald Trump's ignorance and incompetence have always been a danger to our country. COVID-19 was Trump's biggest test. He failed miserably. Today, America has the most COVID deaths in the world and an economic collapse. And both crises are falling hardest on Black and brown families. Millions out of work, millions more trapped in cycles of poverty, millions on the brink of losing their homes, millions of restaurants and stores hanging by a thread. This crisis is bad, and it didn't have to be this way. This crisis is on Donald Trump and the Republicans who enable him. On November 3rd, we will hold them all accountable. So, whether you're planning to vote wearing a mask or vote by mail, please take out your phone right now and text VOTE to 30330. We all need to be in the fight to get Joe and Kamala elected. And after November, we all need to stay in the fight to get big things done. We stay in this fight so that when our children and our grandchildren ask what we did during this dark chapter in our nation's history, we will be able to look them squarely in the eye and say, we organized, we persisted, and we changed America.
Former President Barack Obama has.
I love it.
Elizabeth Warren, short, but you coming in strong.
I can't wait to see that on Saturday Night Live this weekend.
Yeah.
It's gonna be funny as hell. But I like Elizabeth Warren. She's spunky, like I said. She about that life. Like, she don't hold her tongue neither. The ladies it's a strong group of ladies on this Dem side, and if they don't take advantage of that on this one, I don't know if we'll see it again like this.
I love her, and she's so sharp. Like, I hope she gets a really good cabinet position. I hope we see a lot more of her. She don't play games. She's for the people. And, you know, she took a lot of personal insults from Trump and his nonsense, still calling her Pocahontas and all that nonsense. I love her. I think she's relatable. And I think the people, like, you know, she doesn't feel like she's an elitist or she's like out of touch. She seems like she's someone, like she could be your school teacher, your aunt. You know what I mean?
So
I think we're going back to we're going to check right back in with the DNC. They're moving tonight. All right, not going back just yet. Sorry about that. Let's talk a little bit more about this. The women are coming in strong, talking about the fight. I think Elizabeth Warren made it very clear that this is a fight. Hillary Clinton made it very clear that we can't just sit back and just assume that you're going to win, that you have this many votes, this many supporters. And so what does Kamala Harris need to do to kind of push people to keep this momentum that this is a fight and everyone needs to participate?
I think she has to show her chops as a lawyer. She has to show that
for the first and only time in my presidency, I will bestow this medal with an additional level of veneration, an honor my three most recent successors reserved for only three others: Pope John Paul II, President Ronald Reagan, and General Colin Powell. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to award the Presidential Medal of Freedom with distinction to my brother, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. Will the aide please read the citation?
Vice President Joseph R. Biden Jr. In a career of public service spanning nearly half a century, Vice President Joseph R. Biden Jr. has left his mark on almost every part of our nation, fighting for a stronger middle class, a fairer judicial system, and a smarter foreign policy, providing unyielding support for our troops, combating crime and violence against women, leading our quest to cure cancer, and safeguarding the landmark American Recovery and Reinvestment Act from corruption. With his charm, candor, unabashed optimism, and deep and abiding patriotism, Joe Biden has garnered the respect and esteem of colleagues of both parties and the friendship of people across the nation and around the world, while summoning the strength, faith, and grace to overcome great personal tragedy. This son of Scranton, Claymont, and Wilmington has become one of the most consequential vice presidents in American history, an accolade that nonetheless rests firmly behind his legacy as husband, father, and grandfather. A grateful nation thanks Vice President Joseph R. Biden Jr. for his lifetime of service on behalf of the United States of America.
Good evening, everybody. As you've seen by now, this isn't a normal convention. It's not a normal time. So tonight, I want to talk as plainly as I can about the stakes in this election. Because what we do these next 76 days will echo through generations to come. I'm in Philadelphia, where our Constitution was drafted and signed. It wasn't a perfect document. It allowed for the inhumanity of slavery and failed to guarantee women, and even men who didn't own property, the right to participate in the political process. But embedded in this document was a North Star that would guide future generations. A system of representative government, a democracy, through which we could better realize our highest ideals. Through civil war and bitter struggles, we improved this Constitution to include the voices of those who'd once been left out. And gradually, we made this country more just and more equal and more free. The one constitutional office elected by all of the people is the presidency. So at a minimum, we should expect a president to feel a sense of responsibility for the safety and welfare of all 330 million of us, regardless of what we look like, how we worship, who we love, how much money we have, or who we voted for. But we should also expect a president to be the custodian of this democracy. We should expect that regardless of ego, ambition, or political beliefs, the president will preserve, protect, and defend the freedoms and ideals that so many Americans marched for, went to jail for, fought for, and died for. I have sat in the Oval Office with both of the men who are running for president. I never expected that my successor would embrace my vision or continue my policies. I did hope, for the sake of our country, that Donald Trump might show some interest in taking the job seriously, that he might come to feel the weight of the office and discover some reverence for the democracy that had been placed in his care. But he never did. For close to 4 years now, he has shown no interest in putting in the work, no interest in finding common ground, no interest in using the awesome power of his office to help anyone but himself and his friends. No interest in treating the presidency as anything but one more reality show that he can use to get the attention he craves. Donald Trump hasn't grown into the job because he can't. And the consequences of that failure are severe. 170,000 Americans dead. Millions of jobs gone, while those at the top taken more than ever. Our worst impulses unleashed, our proud reputation around the world badly diminished, and our democratic institutions threatened like never before. Now, I know that in times as polarized as these, most of you have already made up your mind. But maybe you're still not sure which candidate you'll vote for, or whether you'll vote at all. Maybe you're tired of the direction we're headed, but you can't see a better path yet, or you just don't know enough about the person who wants to lead us there. So let me tell you about my friend, Joe Biden. 12 years ago, when I began my search for a vice president, I didn't know I'd end up finding a brother. Joe and I come from different places, different generations, but what I quickly came to admire about Joe Biden is his resilience, born of too much struggle, his empathy, born of too much grief. Joe is a man who learned early on to treat every person he meets with respect and dignity, living by the words his parents taught him. No one's better than you, Joe, but you're better than nobody. That empathy, that decency, the belief that everybody counts, that's who Joe is. When he talks with someone who's lost her job, Joe remembers the night his father sat him down to say, that he'd lost his. When Joe listens to a parent who's trying to hold it all together right now, he does it as a single dad who took the train back to Wilmington each and every night so he could tuck his kids into bed. When he meets with military families who've lost their hero, he does it as a kindred spirit, the parent of an American soldier, somebody whose faith has endured the hardest loss there is. For 8 years, Joe was the last one in the room whenever I faced a big decision. He made me a better president, and he's got the character and the experience to make us a better country. And in my friend Kamala Harris, he's chosen an ideal partner who is more than prepared for the job. Someone who knows what it's like to overcome barriers and who's made a career fighting to help others live out their own American dream. Along with the experience needed to get things done, Joe and Kamala have concrete policies that will turn their vision of a better, fairer, stronger country into reality. They will get this pandemic under control, like Joe did when he helped me manage H1N1 and prevent an Ebola outbreak from reaching our shores. They'll expand healthcare to more Americans, like Joe and I did 10 years ago, when he helped craft the Affordable Care Act and nail down the votes to make it the law. They'll rescue the economy, like Joe helped me do after the Great Recession. I asked him to manage the Recovery Act, which jump-started the longest stretch of job growth in history. And he sees this moment now, not as a chance to get back to where we were, but to make long overdue changes so that our economy actually makes life a little easier for everybody. Whether it's the waitress trying to raise a kid on her own, or the shift worker always on the edge of getting laid off, or the student figuring out how to pay for next semester's classes. Joe and Kamala will restore our standing in the world. And as we've learned from this pandemic, that matters. Joe knows the world, and the world knows him. He knows that our true strength comes from setting an example that the world wants to follow. A nation that stands with democracy, not dictators. A nation that can inspire and mobilize others to overcome threats like climate change and terrorism, poverty and disease. But more than anything, what I know about Joe, what I know about Kamala, is that they actually care about every American. And that they care deeply about this democracy. They believe that in a democracy, the right to vote is sacred, and we should be making it easier for people to cast their ballots, not harder. They believe that no one, including the president, is above the law, and that no public official, including the president, should use their office to enrich themselves or their supporters. They understand that in this democracy, the commander-in-chief does not use the men and women of our military who are willing to risk everything to protect our nation as political props to deploy against peaceful protesters on our own soil. They understand that political opponents aren't un-American just because they disagree with you. A free press isn't the enemy, but the way we hold officials accountable. That our ability to work together to solve big problems like a pandemic depend on a fidelity to facts and science and logic, and not just making stuff up. None of this should be controversial. These shouldn't be Republican principles or Democratic principles. They are American principles. But at this moment, this president and those who enable him have shown they don't believe in these things. Tonight, I'm asking you to believe in Joe in Kamala's ability to lead this country out of these dark times and build it back better. But here's the thing. No single American can fix this country alone, not even a president. Democracy was never meant to be transactional. You give me your vote, I make everything better. It requires an active and informed citizenry. So I'm also asking you to believe in your own ability, to embrace your own responsibility as citizens, to make sure that the basic tenets of our democracy endure. Because that's what's at stake right now. Our democracy. Look, I understand why a lot of Americans are down on government. The way the rules have been set up and abused in Congress make it easier for special interests to stop progress than to make progress. Believe me, I know it. I understand why a white factory worker who's seen his wages cut or his job shipped overseas might feel like the government no longer looks out for him, and why a Black mom might feel like it never looked out for her at all. I understand why a new immigrant might look around this country and wonder whether there's still a place for him here. Why a young person might look at politics right now, the circus of it all, the meanness and the lies and conspiracy theories, and think, what is the point? Well, here's the point. This president and those in power, those who benefit from keeping things the way they are counting on your cynicism. They know they can't win you over with their policies. So they're hoping to make it as hard as possible for you to vote and to convince you that your vote does not matter. That is how they win. That is how they get to keep making decisions that affect your life and the lives of the people you love. That's how the economy will keep getting skewed to the wealthy and well-connected. How our health systems will let more people fall through the cracks. That's how a democracy withers, until it's no democracy at all. And we cannot let that happen. Do not let them take away your power. Do not let them take away your democracy. Make a plan right now for how you are going to get involved and vote. Do it as early as you can and tell your family and friends how they can vote too. Do what Americans have done for over 2 centuries when faced with even tougher times than this. All those quiet heroes who found the courage to keep marching, keep pushing in the face of hardship and injustice. Last month, we lost a giant of American democracy in John Lewis. And some years ago, I sat down with John and a few remaining leaders of the early civil rights movement. One of them told me he never imagined he'd walk into the White House and see a president who looked like his grandson. And then he told me that he had looked it up. And it turned out that on the very day that I was born, he was marching into a jail cell, trying to end Jim Crow segregation in the South. What we do echoes through generations. Whatever our backgrounds, we are all the children of Americans who fought the good fight. Great-grandparents working in fire traps and sweatshops without rights or representation. Farmers losing their dreams to dust. Irish and Italians and Asians and Latinos told, go back where you come from. Jews and Catholics, Muslims and Sikhs made to feel suspect for the way they worshiped. Black Americans chained and whipped and hanged, spit on for trying to sit at lunch counters, beaten for trying to vote. If anyone had a right to believe that this democracy did not work and could not work, it was those Americans, our ancestors. They were on the receiving end of a democracy that had fallen short all their lives. They knew how far the daily reality of America strayed from the myth. And yet, instead of giving up, they joined together. And they said, somehow, some way, we are going to make this work. We are going to bring those words in our founding documents to life. I have seen that same spirit rising these past few years. Folks of every age and background who packed city centers and airports and rural roads so that families wouldn't be separated, so that another classroom wouldn't get shot up, so that our kids won't grow up on an uninhabitable planet. Americans of all races joining together to declare, in the face of injustice and brutality at the hands of the state, that Black lives matter. No more, but no less. So that no child in this country feels the continuing sting of racism. To the young people who led us this summer, telling us we need to be better, in so many ways, you are this country's dreams fulfilled. Earlier generations had to be persuaded that everyone has equal worth. For you, it's a given, a conviction. And what I want you to know is that for all its messiness and frustrations, your system of self-government can be harnessed to help you realize those convictions for all of us. You can give our democracy new meaning. You can take it to a better place. You're the missing ingredient. The ones who will decide whether or not America becomes the country that fully lives up to its creed. That work will continue long after this election. But any chance of success depends entirely on the outcome of this election. This administration has shown it will tear our democracy down if that's what it takes for them to win. So we have to get busy building it up by pouring all our efforts into these 76 days and by voting like never before for Joe and Kamala and candidates up and down the ticket so that we leave no doubt about what this country that we love stands for today and for all our days to come. Stay safe. God bless.
The people's president speaking. Twitter is blowing up. I do have one tweet that I want to start with. Jalen Armstrong says, Barack Obama speaking to the DNC from Philadelphia makes me nostalgic for the time when presidents understood basic constitutional principles. Hashtag dump Trump, hashtag Biden Harris 2020. Trump is tweeting through it in all caps right now. That was a strong speech.
Back in 2008 on the campaign trail in an auditorium with that feeling and passion that he would exude, just coming across the screen. You could hear it in the tone in his and see it in his eyes. And this is a constitutional law professor. I mean, there were very few people more qualified than this gentleman to hold that office, and to see him tonight make that appeal and even talk about how he gave Trump a chance, that peaceful transfer of power that they talked about in the Oval Office. He said that Trump was given the opportunity to show himself and just failed to meet the mark. And that is a fairness that we don't see coming out of this kind of administration. And then lastly, just the you, that appeal to people. It seems like this administration is always talking about me, what I can do, what I did, how this is bigger. And instead, the guy who already held the office for 2 terms and is well respected is still focused on the people and not himself.
And the comment from the person on Twitter said they, about them being nostalgic about a time when the presidents understood the constitutional principles. I miss the time. Let's even go basic than that. I miss the time when we had a president that knew how to conjugate a verb, speak proper English, and use more than the 4 words. Like, it just brings us back to a time when we had a president that you want to be like, not someone that's just so petty and so ignorant. You know what I mean? Like, he's just an impressive human being. Period. He just is.
Yeah, it's a group of women across the United States and other places that are watching this between the ages of 45 and 70, and they slips right now with a glass of wine going crazy. Lord, look at that man. Look at that man. I know my auntie losing her mind right now. She heard hello and ain't heard nothing else. But this is the effect of my man Barack Obama, the swag. Like, if there was a rat pack for presidents, him and Kennedy, the top 2 dudes. The swag is just impeccable. He's the guy girls want to be with and the guy guys want to be. Even just looking at him when he came on stage, I was like, hey, man, that's my dog right there. You know what I'm saying? That's my guy. You know what I'm saying? Who could counteract, like Claudia said, who can counteract all that BS that 4-5 spit with eloquent speech, and the way he lay it down is it's pimping. Like, it's macking. He talking so good to me. I feel like going outside. Right? Yeah, I feel like going outside and starting something with somebody.
Let's go to another tweet. Pete Stavros says, Obama said, I did hope for the sake of our country that Donald Trump might show some interest in taking the job seriously. Actually, can't finish the tweet. We got to go back to the DNC because our vice presidential nominee, the Democratic vice presidential nominee, Kamala Harris, is speaking now.
Hey, it's you.
Joe Biden has selected Kamala Harris as his running mate.
She is the first Black woman, first South Asian woman to be named on the Democratic ticket.
This is a historic pick.
Someone who looks like us on a presidential ticket. That's crazy.
Kamala Harris is us. She was born in Oakland.
The daughter of immigrants.
The daughter of Chandler.
Big sister and protector.
She is an HBCU grad.
She is a woman of many firsts.
Ella reconoce el trabajo duro.
She's a hard worker, a really hard worker.
She's brilliant, she's smart, she's tough, and she's got a big future.
She's probably one of the best role models.
Kamala Harris is like a dream to me. Senator Harris cares about people. There's no doubt about it.
When she says for the people, it is in every ounce of who she is. She's for us. She's for us.
She fights for women's rights. She fights to end mass incarceration.
She is a fearless advocate for the voiceless.
The litmus test for America is how we are treating Black women.
Now, I'm talking about someone who can fight for Black people, brown people, undocumented people, LGBT people, disabled people, young people, old people, all of America.
It's about all of us knowing our power, each of us, to lift people up, right? And to remind them that we see them and we hear them and that they matter.
Vice President of the United States?
here tonight is a testament to the dedication of generations before me. Women and men who believed so fiercely in the promise of equality, liberty, and justice for all. This week marks the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment, and we celebrate the women who fought for that right. Yet so many of the Black women who helped secure that victory were still prohibited from voting long after its ratification. But they were undeterred. Without fanfare or recognition, they organized and testified and rallied and marched and fought, not just for their vote, but for a seat at the table. These women and the generations that followed worked to make democracy and opportunity real in the lives of all of us who followed. They paved the way for the trailblazing leadership of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. And these women inspired us to pick up the torch and fight on. Women like Mary Church Terrell, Mary Cloyd Bethune, Fannie Lou Hamer, and Diane Nash, Constance Baker Motley, and the great Shirley Chisholm. We're not often taught their stories, but as Americans, we all stand on their shoulders. And there's another woman whose name isn't known, whose story isn't shared, another woman whose shoulders I stand on. And that's my mother, Shamala Gopalan Harris. She came here from India at age 19 to pursue her dream of curing cancer. At the University of California, Berkeley, she met my father, Donald Harris, who had come from Jamaica to study economics. They fell in love in that most American way while marching together for justice in the civil rights movement of the 1960s. In the streets of Oakland and Berkeley, I got a stroller's eye view of people getting into what the great John Lewis called good trouble. When I was 5, my parents split, and my mother raised us mostly on her own. Like so many mothers, she worked around the clock to make it work, packing lunches before we woke up and paying bills after we went to bed, helping us with homework at the kitchen table and shuttling us to church for choir practice. She made it look easy, though it never was. My mother instilled in my sister Maya and me the values that would chart the course of our lives. She raised us to be proud, strong Black women, and she raised us to know and be proud of our Indian heritage. She taught us to put family first, the family you're born into and the family you choose. Family is my husband, Doug, who I met on a blind date set up by my best friend. Family is our beautiful children, Cole and Ella, who call me Mamala. Family is my sister. Family is my best friend, my nieces, and my godchildren. Family is my uncles, my aunts, and my chitties. Family is Mrs. Shelton, my second mother who lived 2 doors down and helped raise me. Family is my beloved Alpha Kappa Alpha, our Divine Nine, and my HBCU brothers and sisters. Family is the friends I turn to when my mother, the most important person in my life, passed away from cancer. And even as she taught us to keep our family at the center of our world, she also pushed us to see a world beyond ourselves. She taught us to be conscious and compassionate about the struggles of all people, to believe public service is a noble cause and the fight for justice is a shared responsibility. That led me to become a lawyer, a district attorney, attorney general, and a United States senator. And at every step of the way, I've been guided by the words I spoke from the first time I stood in a courtroom. Kamala Harris, for the people. I have fought for children and survivors of sexual assault. I fought against transnational criminal organizations. I took on the biggest banks and helped take down one of the biggest for-profit colleges. I know a predator when I see one. My mother taught me that service to others gives life purpose and meaning. And oh, how I wish she were here tonight, but I know she's looking down on me from above. I keep thinking about that 25-year-old Indian woman, all of 5 feet tall, who gave birth to me at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. On that day, she probably could have never imagined that I would be standing before you now and speaking these words. I accept your nomination for Vice President of the United States of America. I do so committed to the values she taught me, to the word that teaches me to walk by faith and not by sight, and to a vision passed on through generations of Americans, one that Joe Biden shares, a vision of our nation as a beloved community where all are welcome, no matter what we look like, no matter where we come from or who we love. A country where we may not agree on every detail, but we are united by the fundamental belief that every human being is of infinite worth, deserving of compassion, dignity, and respect. A country where we look out for one another, where we rise and fall as one, where we face our challenges and celebrate our triumphs together. Today, that country feels distant. Donald Trump's failure of leadership has cost lives and livelihoods. If you're a parent struggling with your child's remote learning, or you're a teacher struggling on the other side of that screen, you know what we're doing right now is not working. And we are a nation that is grieving the loss of life, the loss of jobs, the loss of opportunities, the loss of normalcy, and yes, the loss of certainty. And while this virus touches us all, we gotta be honest, it is not an equal opportunity offender. Black, Latino, and Indigenous people are suffering and dying disproportionately. And this is not a coincidence. It is the effect of structural racism, of inequities in education and technology, healthcare and housing, job security and transportation, the injustice in reproductive and maternal health care, in the excessive use of force by police, and in our broader criminal justice system. This virus, it has no eyes, and yet it knows exactly how we see each other and how we treat each other. And let's be clear, there is no vaccine for racism. We've got to do the work. For George Floyd, for Breonna Taylor, for the lives of too many others to name, for our children, and for all of us. We've got to do the work to fulfill that promise of equal justice under law. Because here's the thing, none of us are free until all of us are free. So we're at an inflection point. The constant chaos leaves us adrift. The incompetence makes us feel afraid. The callousness makes us feel alone. It's a lot. And here's the thing, we can do better and deserve so much more. We must elect a president who will bring something different, something better, and do the important work. A president who will bring all of us together, Black, white, Latino, Asian, Indigenous, to achieve the future we collectively want. We must elect Joe Biden. And I will tell you, I knew Joe as vice president. I knew Joe on the campaign trail. And I first got to know Joe as the father of my friend. So Joe's son, Bo, and I served as attorneys general of our states, Delaware and California. During the Great Recession, he and I spoke on the phone nearly every day, working together to win back billions of dollars for homeowners from the big banks that foreclosed on people's homes. And Bo and I, we would talk about his family, how as a single father, Joe would spend 4 hours every day riding the train back and forth from Wilmington to Washington. Bo and Hunter got to have breakfast every morning with their dad. They went to sleep every night with the sound of his voice reading bedtime stories. And while they endured an unspeakable loss, those two little boys always knew that they were deeply, unconditionally loved. And what also moved me about Joe is the work that he did as he was going back and forth. This is the leader who wrote the Violence Against Women Act and enacted the assault weapons ban, who as vice president implemented the Recovery Act, which brought our country back from the Great Recessions. He championed the Affordable Care Act, protecting millions of Americans with pre-existing conditions, who spent decades promoting American values and interests around the world. Joe, he believes we stand with our allies and stand up to our adversaries. Right now, we have a president who turns our tragedies into political weapons. Joe will be a president who turns our challenges into purpose. Joe will bring us together to build an economy that doesn't leave anyone behind, where a good paying job is the floor, not the ceiling. Joe will bring us together to end this pandemic and make sure that we are prepared for the next one. Joe will bring us together to squarely face and dismantle racial injustice, furthering the work of generations. Joe and I believe that we can build that beloved community, one that is strong and decent, just and kind, one in which we can all see ourselves. That's the vision that our parents and grandparents fought for, the vision that made my own life possible, the vision that makes the American promise, for all its complexities and imperfections, a promise worth fighting for. So make no mistake, the road ahead is not easy. We may stumble, we may fall short, but I pledge to you that we will act boldly and deal with our challenges honestly. We will speak truths and we will act with the same faith in you that we ask you to place in us. We believe that our country, all of us, will stand together for a better future. And we already are. We see it in the doctors, the nurses, the home health care workers, and frontline workers who are risking their lives to save people they've never met. We see it in the teachers and truck drivers, the factory workers and farmers, the postal workers and poll workers, all putting their own safety on the line to help us get through this pandemic. And we see it in so many of you who are working, not just to get us through our current crisis, but to somewhere better. There's something happening all across our country. It's not about Joe or me. It's about you. And it's about us. People of all ages and colors and creeds who are, yes, taken to the streets, and also persuading our family members, rallying our friends, organizing our neighbors, and getting out the vote. And we have shown that when we vote, we expand access to health care and expand access to the ballot box and ensure that more working families can make a decent living. And I'm so inspired by a new generation. You are pushing us to realize the ideals of our nation, pushing us to live the values we share: decency and fairness, justice and love. You are patriots who remind us that to love our country is to fight for the ideals of our country. In this election, we have a chance to change the course of history. We're all in this fight. You, me, and Joe, together. What an awesome responsibility. What an awesome privilege. So let's fight with conviction. Let's fight with hope. Let's fight with confidence in ourselves and a commitment to each other, to the America we know is possible, the America we love. And years from now, this moment will have passed, and our children and our grandchildren will look in our eyes, and they're going to ask us, where were you when the stakes were so high? They will ask us, what was it like? And we will tell them. We will tell them not just how we felt, we will tell them what we did. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.
I mean, did you ever think, we're seeing this, we're seeing history being made, and I think regardless of how you feel personally, there's a Black woman from Oakland, an AKA, who went to Howard on stage with a silk press, you know, who is now officially the first Black VP nominee of the Democratic Party. Wow. It was hard not to get choked up.
I did get choked up as a Black woman, and seeing all of that. It's just a lot in common. I have an immigrant mom, and in the beginning, before she even got to speak, that Black mother holding a little Black girl up and saying, "You're the future vice president." I was like, oh my God, like that. It just gives me the same kind of feeling I had seeing Barack Obama accept the nomination, becoming president, just feeling like the people who the most disrespected and mistreated in this nation, Black people, to see them raised to this level of I don't know, success. To me, it's a success story already, but just it just did something that made me feel so damn good, and I cannot wait for November 3rd. Like she brought it. It was a perfectly delivered speech. It was everything she said, her tone, everything perfect. 10.
I'm gonna have to pay about $2,000-3,000 to board up all these windows, because when she shouted out AKA, they must have came out and hollered on the porch, supersonic blast. But I like the confidence, like she's talking like I'm supposed to be here. You know, a lot of times when people give speeches, you look at them and you like, man, I don't really believe that. You talking like somebody wrote that for you, fabricated. I could tell that those were her words, that was her passion. It may have been put together for her because that's what they hire people to do. But I felt like she's confident, like I'm supposed to be here. You know what I'm saying? And y'all gonna see me again. Claudia, when we was chatting offline, you was like, future president bet that. I could see that happening. Like looking at her, she fits the part. She looks like she's supposed to be there. I'll be perfectly honest, when he chose her, I was like, what about Susan Rice, Karen Bass, some of the other people? But now just hearing her talk and looking at her swag, she's supposed to be there. What Barack Obama was for a guy, this Kamala is for the ladies, and she's holding it down. So I was thoroughly impressed.
I mean, who would have ever thought that we would be listening to a vice presidential speech from a nominee that had Black history, Black culture, Black issues as some of the main topics that she brought up, from Black history standing on the shoulders of Shirley Chisholm and Constance Motley and Fannie Lou Hamer, to shouting out the D9, the AKAs, HBCUs, Howard University, my own alma mater, and then talking about Black issues like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Those are the kinds of things that I think are going to remind the Black community why we need that voice in that office at this moment, because a lot of people had strong critiques about President Obama and his focus, or lack thereof, depending on how you feel, on issues that specifically targeted the Black community. I think people will be looking to Kamala to see if she's able to take that baton and do maybe more than Barack felt he was able to do during his term.
Real quick, I got
to wrap up though, and because we have to get to Tammy Mack, the Tammy Mack Show, for a full recap of what happened during night 3 of the DNC. We all say here we saw history be made, and progress, it hits you. It's wild how this feels. Thanks for watching.